All warfare, as the old truth goes, is based on deception. And now Washington declares Venezuela's skies closed in its entirety, not through treaties or diplomacy, but a single post on Truth Social. Beneath this digital decree lies a battlefield taking shape: the USS Gerald R. Ford, 12,000 troops, B-2 bombers circling, and 21 boat strikes since September, 83 lives erased in the name of fighting drugs. Trump brands Maduro the head of a narco-terrorist cartel, dangles a $50 million bounty, yet quietly phones him to discuss a White House meeting. Caracas denounces it as a colonial aggression. Allies from Havana to La Paz call it a lie dressed in justice. The bigger the lie, the more it spreads, especially when vengeance masquerades as security. Is this really about cocaine or control? About airspace or invasion? History may not repeat, but in Venezuela, it's rhyming with fire. And I'm Salma El-Fiki, and welcome to Think Tank.
Our world is becoming unhinged.
The New York Times has reported that President Donald Trump has displayed striking inconsistency in his anti-drug trafficking campaign. While dramatically escalating military threats and operations, including closing airspace over Venezuela to fight drug cartels, he simultaneously moved to pardon convicted Honduran former President Juan Orlando Hernandez, a man implicated in massive cocaine trafficking. This dissonance raises serious questions about the truth motive behind the intensified military buildup in the Caribbean. Critics argue that pardoning a major drug trafficking ally while targeting Venezuela, whose leader, Nicolas Maduro, Trump seeks to oust, undercuts the administration's stated counter-narcotics agenda and suggests deeper geopolitical and oil interests are at play. Such a policy of aggressive military posturing, combined with clemency for a convicted narco-trafficker, creates a bogus narrative, as Senator Tim Kaine noted. The actions suggest a highly selective, politically motivated drug war strategy, potentially leveraging the counter-narcotics framework for regime change in Venezuela. And according to the Financial Express, President Trump's recent warning to airlines to avoid Venezuelan airspace, declaring it closed in its entirety, signals a sharp escalation of the U.S. pressure on the Maduro regime. This directive comes amid an intensified military campaign in the Caribbean, supposedly targeting drug smuggling vessels, but suggesting broader objectives in the region. The move leverages the pretext of counter-narcotics to increase military deployments, including the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group near Venezuela. The Trump administration views Maduro as leading a narco-terrorism operation, justifying potential land-based operations to dismantle the alleged Cartel de los Soles. This is a clear strategy to isolate and destabilize the Maduro government through economic and military threat. This is not solely about drug interdiction. It is calculated effort to force regime change, using the closure of sovereign airspace as a significant and provocative step in the campaign. And amid a surge of U.S. warships and Trump's unprecedented declaration closing Venezuelan airspace, fears mount. Is Washington using the war on drugs as a smokescreen for regime change or even military invasion?
In a move echoing the preludes to the past U.S. interventions, President Donald Trump has declared Venezuela's airspace closed in its entirety, not through official channels, but via Truth Social. Sound familiar? Like the build-up to Iraq in 2003. Today's justification hinges on security threats, this time narcotics. But is drug introduction a cover for regime change? Operation Southern Spear is no routine exercise. 12 Navy vessels, B-2 bombers, 12,000 troops, and now covert CIA operations authorized on Venezuelan soil. Beyond the skies, the ground is already trembling. In Venezuela's northeastern state of Sucre, once a quiet corridor for fishing boats, U.S. strikes have turned coastal waters into a kill zone. At least 83 lives lost in 21 boat attacks since September. Locals report intensified patrols by both state forces and pro-government collectivos, while mysterious GPS blackouts sweep across the region, suggesting electronic warfare may already be underway. This is not deterrence. It's soft invasion, testing Venezuela's nerves, infrastructure, and cohesion before the first boot touch soil. Caracas calls it a colonialist threat. Citizens fear being trapped, and with deportation flights suspended, even humanitarian corridors are weaponized. Venezuela's military, underfunded, demoralized, plans guerrilla resistance and anarchization in Caracas, but asymmetry doesn't deter Washington. Havana, La Paz, and Managua denounced the move as illegal. International law experts agree. No nation can unilaterally close another's airspace. Trump insists Maduro runs the Cartel de los Soles. A $50 million bounty backs the claim. Yet just days before, the two leaders spoke by phone about a possible U.S. visit. This is not just about drugs. It's about oil, influence, and a legacy-defining gamble. The airspace closure may be symbolic, but symbols in geopolitics often precede strikes. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes with crises and escalations.
And to provide more analysis, joining us from Washington is Mr. Brent Sadler, the former senior military officer and defense diplomat, and from California, Dr. Ashraf Singer, the international relations expert. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining me here today at Think Tank. And I will start with Mr. Sadler.
Thank you.
Sir, does Trump's unilateral airspace closure via Truth Social have any legal or any operational military standing, or is it just a psychological warfare, in your opinion?
I think it's probably a mix of all of the above.
Okay.
The announcement via Truth Social is an interesting element, but it's certainly one in which the current president of the United States does operate, and the message often is backed up by actual actions, and so it should be taken seriously nonetheless. On the operational side, which I'm much better positioned to talk about, I think it was inevitable. The focus has been consistent in the attacks on the narco cartel's drug shipping boats, both first starting in the Caribbean and then spreading to other very economically significant smuggling routes in the Pacific. That took about a month. It was inevitable that they would have to start to close down the air trafficking routes. The added, expansive operational interdiction of these flights, perhaps over Venezuela, is a very significant escalation militarily. But again, having the aircraft carrier, the Ford, affords the president of the United States that option should he feel compelled to actually use that option for military use. But I think interdicting the cartel's shipments via air and sea in international air and over the waterways is one and probably the most significant weakness of the cartels. And by cutting them off from their markets in Europe and the United States, it'll drive them out of business, and that is what will protect American lives.
And Dr. Singer, Trump calls Maduro a narco-terrorist, and yet at the same time he pardons Honduras's president, who's a convicted drug trafficking ex-president. What about the selective policy? How credible is the U.S. anti-drug narrative at the moment?
In giving like a broad understanding of for the U.S. Foreign policy against Latin America, particularly, or countries can really export the drugs or what we call it, something is really harming the American national security, harming, the people in the United States. It's really deep and long issue here in the United States. But the Trump pressure towards Venezuela, it's clear, it's showing, like it's non-consistent or inconsistent that other countries in Latin America is still really harming the U.S. National security. But Maduro, in my best understanding, or Venezuela, is having a very deep relationship with China and Russia. Probably this is really make United States very nervous since, the Cuban Missile Crisis. United States, didn't like, approaching from rising power in international politics to come close to the United States, what do you call it, the national security landmark or national security area, where Latin America considered by the U.S. policymaker as one of the most important for United States. So I think Maduro, he does need to showing a different policy that he can really survive, rather than to be like anti-Americans or anti-Trump all the time. In other words, of course, there is like smuggling drugs come from Latin America. If it's not from Venezuela, could be from other neighboring United States. Venezuela should really act collectively to stop this kind of poisons.
But Dr. Ashraf, what about this
United
selective
States.
policy I'm talking about? Like, what's happening with the Honduran president and at the same time with Maduro? What about the selective policy?
Yeah, for other nations, they need really to help United States, like Honduras or Puerto Rico or Dominican, and this is really breaking, the relationship between Venezuela and their neighbors, and this is a very nice strategy by United States that can really contain and put pressure on Venezuela from neighboring Venezuela. So this is can really let Venezuela, come close to what the United States does really require and need from Venezuela at that moment.
Okay, Mr. Sadler, with 12,000 troops and the B-2 bombers being deployed in the USS Gerald R. Ford, and do you think this Operation Southern Spear is just a deterrence exercise, or do you think it's an invasion prep? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's first important to remind many folks that not too long ago, Maduro's Venezuela, was threatening its neighbor Guyana over very lucrative oil fields offshore, as well as over half of the country's territory. So perhaps this is partly a deterrence. It's been long in coming to stand down the Venezuelan threat to its neighbors.
Yeah.
But for American citizens and American interests, the number one threat is the drugs that are coming from Latin America, largely via Venezuela. It's not the only one, as already mentioned, but certainly the only nation state currently that's being run by a narcotics cartel is Venezuela. That in 2023, the last time the numbers for an annual death rate from fentanyl, cocaine, cumulative was well over 107,000 American citizens. But you compound that year on year, it is a significant source of death. And that includes political and criminal violence, murder on the streets of the United States by many of the groups that are directly connected back to Caracas and Venezuela and the Maduro regime. So it's a very clear and present danger, both to the wider world.
Mr. Sadler, though, let me ask you, but why specifically Venezuela? We have Honduras at the same time. Why is the focus basically just on Venezuela at the moment?
Well, I mean, you're focusing on the wrong thing. On the surface, it may look inconsistent, but the consistency is what's in the best interest for the United States and American citizens' safety. And there's not enough detail given as the rationale for the pardon that might be given. It's still not given. It's under consideration to what I've heard here in D.C. But there may be a greater, I guess, end state that's being sought by maybe getting that ex-president from Honduras back out into Honduras. The current president there right now is a leftist, is aligned with Cuba, aligned with enemies of the United States, and very likely in league also with many of the same drug cartels. So better the devil you know, perhaps, in trying to curb this. So there could be more things at play here, but the consistency is U.S. interest.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Singer, do you think declaring another nation's airspace closed, not just illegal under international law, but maybe a deliberate provocation to justify intervention, or what do you think?
This is a good question because, you know, the dominant power doesn't care about the international law. United States, even in its foreign policy, or even Europeans' power in 18th century or 19th century, they didn't really respect the international law. And the most important, the word of consistency, even if you can really apply to ex-president of Honduras or to Trump or United States, can really easy to change its position at any time because they are dominant and the United States is controlling the international law. This is what we can really call the nature of international politics. Not trust, power is still playing a major role. So this is really remind us about, you know, what happened of, before the invasion of Iraq in 2003. That airspace closure and giving a kind of a hint that the United States is really approaching to attack Venezuela. Trump, really said that, land is much easier, than other means of, attacking Venezuela. This is like a word of threats towards Venezuela. Till now, even that kind of moving or Marines or that kind of operation in Puerto Rico and Dominican, of what United States is really preparing, to attack Venezuela. Till now, I can't see that United States is really does need to attack Venezuela military now. But this is, I would say, like a sign of threatening Venezuela. Probably Venezuela can really change its position and come close to what probably Trump is asking. Of course, the degree of consistency or of United States foreign policy towards Latin America is inconsistent, but we understand that because United States at any time can really change its position to achieve its goals and foreign policy, not only with Trump, but also before Trump and maybe after Trump. This is like the nature of dominant country in international politics.
Yep. Okay, Mr. Sadler, we have 21 boat strikes killing 83 people since September. Can this still be called counter-narcotics, or has it crossed into combat operations?
Well, I think it's a difference without much of a distinction. The interdictions, I think, follow a pattern that we saw in the Gulf, in the Arabian Sea for many years, interdicting smuggling boats bringing in Iranian arms into the Houthis. And for very long-standing customary and international law, trying to verify the nation that these boats or the vessels are flying a flag, in many cases, they're not flying any flag. And if you go back to counter-piracy and counter-slavery operations over 100+ years ago, if they flee, they can be viewed as hostile and can be fired upon. And so I think what you're seeing is a very aggressive extension of the interdictions that have not been effective enough with the limited resources. And so this dialing up of the interceptions, it's actually having a very significant effect. If the President Trump's words are accurate, and there's reason to believe it, but I don't know to the extent, he said 85% of all of the seaborne drug smuggling has been severed or cut off. If that is just the Caribbean, it leaves the question of how much is still getting through in the Pacific or across the mid-Atlantic or South Atlantic into West Africa and onto Europe. It really needs to be 85% across the board. The resources that are available just aren't there to do it by traditional boarding type interdictions, and the cartels know that. So this I think escalation to lethal interdictions was inevitable, many years in the coming. And again, I think there is a strong case to be made for why it's happening. I don't think it's necessary to continue this fight on land to be effective. But if political and military pressures start to bear that the only way we're going to bring the cartels to heel is by going on land, we may see that in the near future.
Dr. Singer, history shows that airspace closures often precede war. So do you think Trump is repeating the Iraq 2003, but with Venezuela's oil as the price, maybe?
You know, Trump presented himself as a man of peace. So basically, if he changed that positions by attacking Venezuela, probably this is probably Trump will lose this level or that level of credibility in front of the world. We understand that this is a sign of war. Once you come too close to the closing or closure to the airspace closure, this is clear that the Pentagon is really preparing for attacking, and basically this is a clear hint or a clear sign that United States is moved. But I still remember what Trump said. The land is easier, but that's going to start very soon. Very soon, it is still that giving the timing that is okay. This is like a huge pressure on Maduro to change his positions. He mentioned that is, we warned them. I mean, that is Trump and Maduro, by the way. He had a phone call last week, and mean that is, probably Maduro didn't really respond exactly for what Trump really asking for. Trump declared clearly, stop sending poison to our country. That is the point is very clear. It is about the drug or it is about the oil reserve, and this is what people from all over the world now is really watching what is going on in Venezuela. It's really Trump tried to stop China from...
Dr. Singer, unfortunately, I'm just going to be moving on air. We're going to be listening to the Lebanese president, Joseph Aoun, delivering a speech at the moment regarding the presence and welcoming Pope Leo XIV. So let's go and watch.
This is Lebanon that welcomes you today. Lebanon that was founded because of freedom and for freedom, not because of any religion or sect or faction. The land of freedom for everyone and dignity for everyone. A land that is very special. We have Muslims and Christians living different but equal in a constitutional regime that is built on equality between Muslims and Christians and to being open to everyone and all countries. This is why Lebanon is special, and this is us welcoming everyone across the world. And so here we want to protect Lebanon, because if this here heals in a free life that is equal between those of different religions, then no other place is as good for them. And as I said in the United Nations in New York, I'm saying this again here from Beirut, if Christianity is no longer in Lebanon, we don't have equality in Lebanon. And if Muslims disappear, there will be no balance in Lebanon. And if Lebanon is changed, then An alternative will not be here, and we will have extremism, force, and brutality. This is what has recognized, and this is why he talked and tried to protect Lebanon's sovereignty, and then also posed the second. He made sure that Lebanon stays here always by saying that Lebanon is more than just a country. It is a message on freedom to the east, just like the west. Before he had a couple by dedicating noodles to Lebanon, and this is what they said or talked about 40 years ago, that having Christianity in Lebanon is a base and a foundation for its prosperity in our region. And today we swear that keeping up this Lebanon and having this Lebanon is a foundation and a condition for peace in all the world. And then also with the Pope Leo the 16th that has reiterated from Beirut that the East's future cannot be built unless we have coordination and mutual respect. And this here was very symbolic, and he didn't state he didn't state this from any other country. And here we welcome you. We welcome Pope Leo visiting Lebanon in such a great message here. If you want Lebanon to be your first destination outside of Rome, and so you came here directly from the land of rule of faith to reiterate your faith in us and to reiterate our faith in humans and our belief in humans. You came here to the land of churches to plant hope and to make it a witness here. You came here so that we can read aloud to you your own words in your last statement, because here having someone who has done that is like having this on ground. And so here we have lots of brutality and people who are hurting, and they are waiting for your sacred touch, and they are looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Tell the world about us. We're not dying, we're not leaving, we're not giving up. We are staying here, waiting for freedom, making up and actually founding happiness and being happy every single day. Tell the world about us, Your Holiness, that we will stay the Lebanon that you know, and we will always welcome Christianity here. Here, this crowd can behind you, and they agree on one thing, on Christianity and on all the beliefs. What Lebanon offers here cannot be found anywhere else, and those who are brought together by Lebanon cannot be apart. And so here we want peace in the region, and we want peace in our country. And from now until those who are in control and are convinced we have nothing to fear because of your prayers. We are staying here on this land full of hope. We are staying here. We are staying here as messengers of peace and good, So from the very start until the end, we are the students of that who told us not to see anything and to trust him because of his love and peace, he conquered the world. And we are witnesses of this and we are working on implementing it. Long live peace, long live love, long live your holiness, long live Lebanon.
Mr. President, distinguished civil and religious authorities, members of the diplomatic corps, ladies and gentlemen, blessed are the peacemakers. It is a great joy for me to meet with you and to visit this land where peace is much more than just a word. For here, peace is a desire and a vocation. It is a gift and a work in progress. You are invested with authority in this country, each in your own area and with specific roles. It is in light of this authority that I wish to address to you the words of Jesus that have been chosen as the central theme of my journey. Blessed are the peacemakers. Certainly, there are millions of Lebanese here and throughout the world who serve peace silently day after day. Yet you who have important institutional tasks within this nation are destined for a special beatitude if you can say that you have put the goal of peace above all else. In this meeting, I would like to reflect with you a little on what it means to be peacemakers in circumstances that are highly complex, conflictual, and uncertain. In addition to Lebanon's natural beauty and cultural riches, which have been praised by those of my predecessors who visited your country, there is a shining quality that distinguishes the Lebanese. You are a people who do not give up, but in the face of trials, you always know how to rise again with courage. Your resilience is an essential characteristic of authentic peacemakers. For the work of peace is indeed a continuous starting anew. Moreover, the commitment and love for peace know no fear in the face of apparent defeat, are not daunted by disappointment, but look ahead, welcoming and embracing all situations with hope. It takes tenacity to build peace. It takes perseverance to protect and nurture life. Examine your history and ask yourselves, from where comes that formidable energy that has never left your people downtrodden or without hope? You are a diverse country, a community of communities, united by a common language. I'm not simply referring to the Levantine Arabic, by which your great past has left inestimable treasures. Above all, I'm referring to the language of hope, which has always enabled you to start again. Almost everywhere in the world around us, a kind of pessimism and sense of powerlessness seem to have taken hold, where people are no longer able to ask themselves what they can do to change the course of history. Major decisions appear to be taken by a select few, often to the detriment of the common good, as if this were an inevitable destiny. You have suffered greatly from the consequences of an economy that kills, from global instability that has devastating repercussions also in the Levant, and from the radicalization of identities and conflicts. But you have always wanted and known how to start again. Lebanon can boast a vibrant, well-educated civil society, rich in young people, capable of expressing the dreams and hopes of an entire nation. I encourage you, therefore, never to separate yourselves from your people and to place yourselves with commitment and dedication at the service of your people, who are so rich in variety. May you speak just one language, namely the language of hope, that by always starting afresh draws everyone together. May the desire to live and grow in unity as a people create a polyphonic voice out of each group. May you also be helped by those deep bonds of affection that tie so many Lebanese throughout the world to their country. They love their origins and pray for the people of which they still feel a part. They also support them through the many experiences and skills that make them so appreciated everywhere. This brings us to a second characteristic of peacemakers. Not only do they know how to start over, but they do so first and foremost along the arduous path of reconciliation. Indeed, there are personal and collective wounds that take many years, sometimes entire generations, to heal. If they are not treated, if we do not work, for example, to heal memories, to bring together those who have suffered wrongs and injustice, it is difficult to journey towards peace. We would remain stuck, each imprisoned by our own pain and our own way of thinking. The truth, on the other hand, can only be honored through encountering one another. Each of us sees a part of the truth, knowing one aspect of it, but we cannot negate what only the other knows, what only the other sees. Truth and reconciliation only ever grow together, whether in a family, between different communities and the various people of a country, or between nations. At the same time, there can be no lasting reconciliation without a common goal, or without openness towards a future in which good prevails over the evils that have been suffered or inflicted in the past or the present. A culture of reconciliation, therefore, does not arise only from below, from the willingness and courage of a few. It also needs authorities and institutions that recognize the common good as superior to the particular. The common good is more than the sum of many interests, for it draws together everyone's goals as closely as possible, directing them in such a way that everyone will have more than if they were to move forward by themselves. Indeed, peace is much more than a mere balance, which is always precarious, among those who live separately while under the same roof. Peace is knowing how to live together in communion as reconciled people. A reconciliation that, in addition to enabling us to live together, will teach us to work together for a shared future side by side. Thus, peace becomes that abundance which will surprise us when our horizons have expanded beyond every wall and barrier. Sometimes we think that before taking a further step, we need to clarify and resolve everything. Instead, mutual dialogue, even amid misunderstandings, is the path that leads to reconciliation. The greatest truth is that we find ourselves together as part of a plan that God has prepared so that we may become a family. Finally, I would like to outline a third characteristic of those who strive for peace. Even when it requires sacrifice, peacemakers dare to persevere. There are times when it is easier to flee or simply more convenient to move elsewhere. It takes real courage and foresight to stay or to return to one's own country and to
And we were watching President Joseph Aoun delivering a speech and claiming and saying that Lebanon is being the land of freedom for everyone across the world and very diverse but united. And also spoke about wanting to keep the sovereignty of Lebanon and having prosperity, faith, and freedom. And Pope Leo XIV, for choosing Lebanon, is a message of peace and hope to end war and destruction. As for Pope Leo XIV, who also delivered a speech and claiming that there were two major characteristics for the Lebanese people. One is being the peacemakers, and as being peacemakers, they have immense resilience. And he spoke about having to rise up from any hardship. And the second point was, as being peacemakers, is the culture of reconciliation and being to live together and to work together towards a shared future. And with that, I was joined with Mr. Brent Sadler at Think Tank, the former senior military officer and defense diplomat, and Dr. Ashraf Singer, the international relations expert. Thank you so much, gentlemen, both for your special insights and your valuable opinions. And all warfare is based on deception, and today truth is posted and not proclaimed, and bombs fall under the banner of drugs. History watches closely. Is this justice or just another empire's rhyme written in fire? The bigger the lie, the faster it burns. And as Venezuela cries colonial aggression, history watches not justice unfolding, but an empire scripting its next rhyme and fire, and believing a single man can dictate the fate of nations. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Think Tank, which always unveils the complexities of our changing world. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.